On today's World Insight, the building blocks of digital technology with open source at its core innovation. Why open source has gone mainstream from industry insiders, the executive director of open source pioneer Linux Foundation and the founder of Laion on how open source for all works.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Open source is a crucial factor in motivating and nurturing innovation. As artificial intelligence is transforming the innovation agenda worldwide, open source AI has become the mainstream, represented by DeepSeek and a few others. The Linux Foundation is one of the key players since 2 decades ago, supporting decentralized innovation. But it takes trust, as the executive director of the Linux Foundation, Jim Zemlin, suggested in a recent interview I had with him on the sideline of the BAAI conference in Beijing. Jim, good to see you here in Beijing.
Thank you.
Many times here?
Yes, I first came here in the early 90s and have come many times.
Early 90s?
I know.
China then, very different from now.
Very different. It's very different. There was only a couple of hotels where you could stay, but it's amazing how China has transformed in, one person at least lifetime, but it's pretty amazing.
And it's also amazing how AI has been transforming over the decades, isn't it?
It is.
How do you see that description, and where are we in terms of open source globally?
Yeah, open source is really a fundamental building block of modern technology. Studies of late will tell you that 80% of the source code in any technology product or service is open source. Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize is that, just average people don't realize, is that open source touches an average person every day. The internet runs on open source software. Mobile phones run on open source software. Banking systems run on open source software. Right. It is a ubiquitous building block of modern technology. So today is a good era for open source. It really is a part of everybody's daily life, even though they don't necessarily know what open source is.
Right. Of course, DeepSeek in terms of AI, LLMs, has been making a difference in terms of people's awareness of open source. Mm-hmm. How has that picture changed before and after?
I think that the DeepSeek created a bit of an open source moment for artificial intelligence, but open source had already been a big part of machine learning and AI technology prior to DeepSeek. Tools like PyTorch and a variety of other open source software is what you use to make a large language model, whether it's ChatGPT or DeepSeek or any other. I think what DeepSeek did is proved that, a small organization with not a ton of resources, but a lot of ingenuity, can sort of change the market dynamics in a big way, both through sheer innovation, but also by open sourcing that software and showing the world that there are new and innovative ways to do large language model development, and getting a big community around that to also pile on with new innovations on top of DeepSeek.
Right. Have you seen a revolution of new innovations, quote unquote, as those were the expectations after DeepSeek was born, right? Everybody can now take advantage of DeepSeek or other open source LLMs. Did you see that happening, or is not?
Within days of DeepSeek dropping, you saw lots of different variations of that model on Hugging Face, and people playing with the different innovation that came out of DeepSeek and applying it in different areas and unexpected things. And so that's pretty normal way that open source software development happens. What DeepSeek reminded people of, at least reminded me of, and people who are kind of in the open source world, is, this is just a fundamentally better way to create technology. The fact that people can organically collaborate on the software, and the idea that collectively we're smarter than we are individually is something that has just been true for years and years and years.
Right. In fact, you have been trying to organize and nourish a lot of different entities in terms of open source development. How has that been working so far related to artificial intelligence? What are the most difficult parts of it so far?
I think that if you look at the traditional work that's gone on in open source, it's largely been focused on software development of source code. And so, if you look at Linux or Kubernetes or kind of the big OpenStack, the big open source projects at the Linux Foundation, all of them are really source code. But for building artificial intelligence, large language models, it's more than source code. You need data, you need the weights, there's a whole set of components that are used to create these models. And so what we're trying to do is find ways that people can collaborate in all of those things. Better ways to share data, better ways to share weights, better ways to share the source code for the tools that are used to create those models. And so what we're trying to do is apply the same kind of co-development models that make open source software development really successful to large language models as well.
What is it then?
So one of the things that makes open source software work really well is it's a many-to-many sharing model. It's freely available to the public. Anybody can use open source software. Anybody can generally contribute to open source software. And we want to apply that same many-to-many sharing model to data as well. So one of the things that we've done is we created a data license. Just like you have an open source software license, we have a community data license that helps people all kind of use the same sharing agreement so that they can mix and match data, improve data, using the same sort of legal license and sharing agreement for that data. What that allows to happen is data flows more easily. You get sort of more data liquidity. It's easy for people to look at data, improve that data, and know that the terms at which they're sharing that data is well understood, so they can then share more and use it freely.
Are you satisfied with the speed of it?
I would like to see more, and I predict that there will be more data sharing efforts.
How to make it more?
Yeah, one of the things that is difficult for a typical individual or a small company to do is to get access to the large amount of data that's needed to create a large language model. And I think you're going to see a lot more community-led data sharing arrangements, and that's something that we're trying to promote.
Would that be hindered by geopolitics or other difficulties we are seeing in terms of commercial competition and stuff like that?
Maybe commercial competition, but I think the biggest thing is just coordinating the resources to do it. I'll give you an example. We have a project called Overture Maps. This is an effort to create the largest geospatial mapping data set in the world. Hard part about it is just the work of cleaning up the data, making sure it's in a format that can be easily digested. That just takes a considerable amount of engineering time and resources. And so one of the jobs...
And using what kind of standards to so-called clean up the data,
Yeah,
right?
You have to create a metadata format for the data itself. The data is layered and complicated. And what we do is we work with industry to raise the resources to hire people to do that work. And so the Overture Maps project has people who are data architects and data scientists who curate data from all over the world, publicly available data, and create a very high quality data set that can then be used to create mapping services or to train models with geospatial data. And I think that is something we're going to see a lot more of in other data sets, whether it's, medical information for drug discovery or, coding data sets or whatever it might be. I think we'll see more collective open data sharing.
You with the Linux Foundation seem to have the capability of bringing so many different stakeholders together. And some of them are so different from one another. And some of them do not necessarily agree with one another on various issues, but they are on your platform as members. How does that work, especially now when you see geopolitics coming in, commercial interests coming in, these complicated matters?
So open source generally doesn't get impacted by that. I think that years ago, the technology industry, first in the United States and then all over the world, realized that they can both compete and collaborate at the same time through open source, and that worked from a business perspective. And it's just proven time and time again to be true. Artificial intelligence, large language models as we know them today, wouldn't have happened without open source software. True. All of this technology is built on successive decades of open source software that has created the internet, that has created tools like PyTorch and other frameworks that are used to create large language models. So certainly the end product might not be open source, but there's a lot of open source that's utilized to create these things.
Fair.
It's important to understand. Yeah. Second of all, people can decide how to license their technology however they want. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people think that, it's better that we license this as proprietary software, and others want to do it as open source software. For people who choose, or companies that choose to do open source software development, generally what they're looking to do is collaborate on pre-competitive things that don't really differentiate their company or their business, or aren't the areas where they extract value and charge money for it. And they want to have lots of different engineers and even their competitors all working together, because that open source software isn't really what their customers are buying. Mm-hmm. Like, you probably use TikTok or WeChat. Did you know that Kubernetes runs the services that are used to deliver that product?
And there are layers of those.
You don't care though. You don't care that there's all this open source software. What you want to do is share information with people who online. That's the product, right? Open source is the building block. And so what happens over time is the companies decide where they want to create value. I think at the infrastructure layer, and I would consider a large language model to be infrastructure software, it is much more difficult to compete and differentiate at that layer than at higher layers of the application stack, at that application layer, at that user interface layer. Do people want AI tech, or do they want a self-driving car? Do people want AI tech, or do they want an online chatbot that they can ask questions to? And what generally happens is people want that chatbot.
Right.
They want that self-driving car. They want drug discovery tools. What they don't care as much about is underlying infrastructure, because that's not what makes their company unique. That's not where they make money. And it's very hard to compete there. And so that's why you see so much open source working. Even when big competitors are differentiating at other layers of the stack, you see them cooperating at those lower layers of technology because it's more cost effective.
Right. And do you see that trend likely to continue?
Absolutely.
All right. And so ChatGPT, let's just use two examples, and DeepSeek, are they more going to be in a competition mode, or are they going to be more in a cooperation mode in terms of open source?
I think that organizations are always going to compete to raise the bar on innovation.
Right.
Open source is a very effective way to, one, create platform and system level innovation, and a very good way to lower costs at that level and to fearlessly innovate at higher levels. And I think that's what you see great companies doing. I think that's why you see Open AI saying that they're going to open source a large language model this year as well. I think they're fearless.
How to make sure that the public will understand your logic and there can be grassroots support for your logic of open source that eventually would benefit the public is the question.
Yeah.
So how do you see that, full circle is taking place right now?
I think it's important to remember that there are some parts of life and society and technology that are truly non-zero-sum games, where you can...
They're destined to be so, or they are being made that way?
They're already proven to be so. Open source software is an incredible example where the fiercest competitors both improve each other in cloud computing. Microsoft, Tencent, Alibaba, Google, Amazon, all collectively contribute to Kubernetes, to cloud, which is the way that cloud infrastructure is built. And they compete very hard to win customers to each other's clouds. So they're cooperating here and they're competing over here.
Would that be the same logic with AI?
I think that's the same logic for lots of different sectors of technology. Automotive companies have joined forces to use open source software to build the underlying software for the digital cockpit experience, navigation, information systems in a car. But each car is entirely unique in terms of how they display that information, in terms of how the car is set up. And it's a great example of a non-zero-sum game. I can both compete and cooperate at the same time. And I think that is important for people to understand, is that competition is not mutually exclusive of cooperation. Mm-hmm. And in the case of software development, a complex task that often, at lower levels of the technology stack, consumers don't really care about, is something that collectively is better done. And helps improve everyone, and actually helps enable higher level competition, and that's good for everybody.
So good to see you. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is Jim Zemlin, the Executive Director of the Linux Foundation on Open Source AI. You're watching World Insight. Coming up, a conversation with the founder of Laion on Open Source for All. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is World Insight with me, Tianwei. Another advocate for the shared tech innovation is Laion, a nonprofit organization that makes open source artificial intelligence models and datasets. I had a recent talk with its founder and leader of the engineering of Laion AI, Richard Vencu. He told me that machine learning research and its applications have the potential to have huge positive global impacts, and it should be accessible to everyone. Take a listen. Richard, good to see you in Beijing.
Nice to meet you here.
Richard, so you have been advocating about the open source data sets. How does that work under the current circumstances?
So it is our belief that the open data sets are our chance to be able to give to everyone empowerment through AI tools, so everyone can have the best chance to solve their problems efficiently. So 4 years ago, when we started Laion, that was our main goal. Whatever we do, we should try to empower everyone in the world, no matter which country. So we set up building this multimodal data set known as Laion 5B, I find out that it has been extensively in use in China. I'm happy for that. It's a confirmation for us that we did the right job and took the right decision.
When people approach you and say, hey, Richard, we're using yours, we're using your product, what was it like for you?
I feel humbled.
Especially maybe some of the latest development in AI in China has a lot to do with it.
It's China actually shines now through the DeepSeek model, which is a language model, not necessarily based on our data set, but we have to close the gap for open source to be close to the frontier models in the multimodal world. That means vision models, video models, audio models. We have to do that. So our data sets help here.
But you know, Richard, just to be fair, before DeepSeek, not many open source products were open to China because of the competition. And now after DeepSeek, it seems that there's more advocacy internationally about open source. Some experts might argue, is it fair?
I disagree. We have been open from the get-go. So 2021, we released the first Laion 400 million. Openly, nothing changed. That's 2022. Many AI labs from China started to use Laion 5B. So we've been there, and somehow there was progress based on our work. I believe China just got into the pole position in the LLM with DeepSeek, and this is good. It's beneficial for the entire open source ecosystem. We see this as a win globally, not only for China, but congratulations to China.
You also see after DeepSeek, other large language models begin to operate with open source way. Do they help you much in terms of your research?
I don't really know. I mean, other language models that were frontier before and released new stuff were not so impressive. They didn't jump much. There's one exception.
What do you mean by jump much? Which barometer are you using?
There are a lot of benchmarks.
Sure.
We also have comments around the benchmarks. They are not very good at this time. So we have interest in developing better benchmarks.
What's the problem with the benchmarks?
They are limited. And
in what way then?
Whatever benchmarks are today, they pull out some numbers. And whoever is, there is a competition of numbers. And there are some leaderboards publicly. So whenever someone submits a new model, it gets tested and its numbers are displayed and it gets into the pole position or not. But we've seen big names gaming this system, like training the models on the test data sets, which is the ugliest thing to do in the industry, but apparently it happens when finances and valuations are at stake. So yeah, we really need better benchmarking, and we really need to understand better what happens inside the model. So
there can be a lot of skepticism, I'm sure you know that, over the years already, because there were so-called accusations about harmful contents, copyright issues, and data sets cleanliness, quote unquote.
Yes.
So how do you understand that during the process of what you are trying to achieve, which you think is a selfishness goal, there are different accusations and there might be phenomena that you have to deal with? What is it like for you?
it's true, we really had to deal with that, and we are dealing with these problems. continuously. My understanding is like this. So whatever content is illegal, it has to be taken out. The tools to identify such content in a very huge amount of data are not available to the public, so not to us. And even when they are available, the cost is very big. But we took this obligation to maintain our data sets. So we got in contact with authorities and agencies that are dealing with the sensitive problems. They gave us signatures to identify images that potentially might be bad. We did a rescan. We already implemented from the get-go some stochastic approach to eliminate such harmful content. With the help of the agencies, we've been able to eliminate another 1,000 potentially bad images. We didn't look at them, of course. We don't know for sure, but now we have a cleaner version. And we encourage everyone that has downloaded the old data set to run and clean it up and upgrade to the new status. There are other kind of problematic images, copyright ones and maybe, let's say, not suitable for work ones, that are still posing a problem. They are not illegal, but they are not necessarily good.
In the gray area, so to speak.
Gray area or bad area. But the world, so this is about the scientific approach. So as the scientists, we have to reflect the world. What we found out there is, let's say, a snapshot of the world. Research is conducted also for good things, for bad things. We have researchers that have to research security issues. We have researchers that have to research harmful issues.
Good to see you, Richard.
Nice to meet you.
What a conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for today. Today we are focusing a lot on open source AI. I'm sure that's going to be a huge topic for the future as well. You're watching World Insight. That's all the time we have for today. Please, if you'd like to know more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of all my team, thanks for being with us. Bye for now.